Oh, welcome back from that report. In Nigeria's diverse multicultural society, diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI have evolved beyond mere buzzwords, emerging as essential pillars for organizational success and societal progress. Nigeria's rich cultural tapestry offers invaluable lessons on embracing DEI's transformative potential. Now, my guest, Bright UK Okwenga, is a dynamic professional wearing multiple hats as a speaker, author, digital entrepreneur, psychologist, and coach. He coaches individuals and groups, consults for companies and organizations, writes for top-tier tabloids, and speaks regularly at conferences around the nation on subjects that impact human behavior, empower leaders, shape culture, and democratize prosperity. Now, renowned for his ability to ignite mental transformation using his groundbreaking hashtag 6 Sense framework, Bright is the principal consultant at 6 Sense Leadership Consulting, an innovative strategy, training, and consulting company that helps individuals and organizations lead the future by catalyzing their reinvention and exponential growth. He joins me now as we look more into this DEI and how we can incorporate inclusivity in organizational structures and, of course, leadership. Many thanks for joining me on Business Insight, Bright.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you.
It is very apt what we are looking at because, for instance, Nigeria is a multicultural, multi-diverse setting, and issues of exclusion always comes to the forefront, especially leadership position, workplaces, and of course organizations generally. So let's just talk about DEI specifically and the inclusivity and why it is necessary to, to be a thing really.
Oh yeah. So first and foremost, talking about DEI, which means diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is the presence and if I would say appreciation of differences within an entity, whether it's a team, a group, a company, an organization, whatever it is, right? And these differences exist in terms of age, in terms of gender, in terms of religion, in terms of tribe and ethnicity. I mean, there could be different variations of that difference. And when we talk about equity, we're talking about giving people equal access, right? Treating them fairly, giving them equal opportunities, to fully participate, right? And then the last one we're looking at is inclusion. Inclusion means, creating a culture where everyone feels respected, they feel valued, they feel appreciated, they feel they belong, right? And then it's, of course, engages them to fully release themselves into whatever it is that they are supposed to be doing so they can have full participation. And that's basically it is. And when we have diverse opinions, diverse perspectives, one of the major things it does is that it helps us to be able to look at the same thing from different places, and from different angles, and it eventually helps us to cut through the complexities of today's challenging environment, whether in business, in politics, or in any other area as well.
Okay, fine. I still need to understand that. Still talking about understanding the DEI concept or initiative, as the case may be, specifically equity, because a school of thought believes that equity might be different from equality, because some people try to get both of them confused. Because, for instance, you can talk about we are equitable or we are fair, or in my organization we have 50% men and 50% women. But then some people might say that that is not equity, because you have 50% men, but then how much of the men are really part of management level, and how much is in different aspects. So how do we differentiate between equity and equality as it is?
So at the core of equity, which is what we would always want to focus on in this case, is your ability to provide specific needs or provide resources to meet specific needs, right? Such that each person has their needs met. Not just that we are treating everybody, giving everybody the same thing. No, it's according to what is needed. So equity is ensuring that everyone has their needs met.
So let's bring it down to the organizational culture and the workplace scenario. How does all of this play? How does it actually add to effectiveness and also help an organizational structure?
So generally, like I said earlier, when organizations have a diverse team, it helps to foster innovation. It helps to solve problems because at the heart of innovation is creativity. At the heart of innovation and problem solving is creativity. And at the heart of creativity is the ability to see differently, right? If we are all seeing the same thing, we will have the same problem in terms of what you call a blind spot, right? There are things that we might not be able to see because of our wiring over time. So it's better when you have two different people who are approaching it from two different angles. The way a man sees usually is not the way a woman sees.
True.
The way an elder sees is not the way a young child sees.
True.
The way someone who is, not physically disabled, is different from the way which a disabled person sees. And we must be able to recognize that for every one of these persons we've mentioned, or every of these categories, there are many other people within that same category who have needs, right? Just like the same. So again, when we're able to see differently, it helps us to be able to, solve today's problems together and, create tomorrow's future together as well. So at the end of the day, what I'm saying basically is that the more diverse a team is, the more the competitive advantage that a team, a group, or an organization might have. Yes, and to put that in some credible with some credible statistics.
The evidences.
Right, evidences. Right. There's a statistic. There's a research that teams that are more diverse, right, that are diverse in nature would always have 80%, 87% higher productivity levels than teams that are not, because of the factor of innovation, right? There was another study conducted by the Boston Consulting Group, BCG, that shows that we have teams executive management teams, right, with gender diversity or diversity generally outperformed others, right, by 19% in terms of their productivity. So there are evidences backing the significance, all right, of diversity, equity, and inclusion within organizations.
Okay, let's talk about implementation really, because it's looking so very laudable, because of the evidence and the statistic that you have mentioned. And how do we implement it? For instance, are there practical steps that organizations can take? For instance, I am watching at home and you're talking about DEI, and I need to be very diverse and inclusive, of course, while also talking about equity. So what are the practical steps that I could, or an organization or leadership structure can do to infuse this DEI principle?
Okay, yeah. So when it comes to DEI, it's very practical. Whether in the home, in the office, in the boardroom, anywhere it is, it's practical. And it's a function of leadership, because culture is a core leadership function. And at the heart of culture is policy making, right? And for leaders, leaders not only make policies, but they also model those policies, right? So I give four practical, strategies for these. 4 A's, if I may call them. The first one is assessment. You need to assess where the gaps are. Right? Ask questions. What kind of noise is emanating as a result of imbalances in diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? And how exactly, or what do we need to do to cover those gaps, right? What measurable outcomes can we set? What measurable goals can we set? The second one is awareness. Right? So it's one thing for people to say they want to embrace DEI. It's another thing for them to have the requisite training, right, to understand what exactly it is.
So you need to be trained to understand.
They need to be trained to understand it. And the other side of it is that by training, they also get equipped with the skills, right, needed to implement that practically. The third side is the adoption. And that's why I talked about policy. You need to create the right policy that fosters inclusion. In fact, whenever I lead a team, whenever I'm privileged to lead a team, one of the ground rules I establish is that no one is permitted to silence someone who chooses to speak up. All right? And you're not even permitted to interrupt them, because everyone's idea counts, no matter how foolish it appears to one person, it counts, right? So people have to be encouraged to speak up that way. And so there must be policies, whether policies for recruitment, policies for promotion as well, right? Because when you're promoting, you want to ensure that your leadership at the end of the day is diverse and people have equal opportunities at promotion. The fourth side of it is accountability.
Accountability.
Yes, we have to set measurable goals in terms of our DEI initiative to track progress at the end of the day. Yeah.
So being accountable will also entail reviewing what you have done,
Yes.
and then knowing how to.
You have to
evaluate
review
it.
progress as often as possible.
You mentioned leadership in passing, but let's talk about leadership and how what role it plays in driving and sustaining DEI in maybe organizations and even at the home front.
Oh yeah, so like I said, at least three things. Number one, leaders are models. You can't talk about wanting to implement a policy that you are not practicing yourself. You have to practice what you preach.
True.
You know, when you have meetings, you have to encourage people to speak up. When you have to make a decision, right, you don't just let your own idea win. You know, it was Steve Jobs that said in weak organizations, he says politics win. And when you talk about politics, you're talking about underrepresented groups. I mean, there are certain underrepresented groups that are just, you know, silenced. They're just left out of the pool of ideas.
True.
As well. So in weak organizations, politics wins, Steve Jobs said. And he said in strong organizations, the best idea wins, right? So in modeling DEI, the leader has to always ensure that everybody has an equal shot to speak up and get heard, and they can contribute to the pool of ideas, and the best idea win. The second aspect of it is the policy making, which I've already talked about: assessment, awareness, adoption, and of course accountability. And then the third aspect of it is advocacy. We need to be able to speak up as leaders. When we find that we are falling short, if one person is falling short of practicing DEI, we have to call them to order, right? So on one side of it also has to do with appreciating, catching people right to doing something right enough to appreciate them. On the other hand, it has to do with catching them doing something wrong enough to correct them. So
okay, but then are there ways leaders can actually model inclusive behaviors and create an environment you know, where every employee can actually have that fairness that we're talking about? Another thing again that comes to my mind is that in as much as you're trying to be balanced, be fair, be equitable and all that, is there a point where you're being too equitable that it might really affect the bottom line?
So again, this is not just about promoting anybody and everybody just because of their gender, just because of their age. I mean, there has to be some sense of meritocracy.
Okay.
Right? So we're not just like it has been said previously, we're not just bringing women to the table because they are women. They also have to be brought to the table because of the value that they have to offer at the table. The most important thing is that if the woman has the value to offer at the table, she should not be dropped simply because she is a woman.
Okay.
If a young person has something to offer at the table, they should not be dropped, they should not be disadvantaged because of their age. So at the end of the day, it's not so much about bringing people to the table, it's about bringing people who have value to the table, and let them be given equal opportunity, all right, to be at the table based on the value that they have to contribute. If that is the case, right, if everyone has value to offer at the table, and they are coming from diverse backgrounds, they are coming with different skills, they are coming with different exposures, different experiences. Yes, they can see things as differently as possible, and that the difference, the disparity in their perspectives becomes an added strength when they are actually working towards the same agenda.
You know how it is when you have different people with different mindsets and from different cultural perspectives. Sometimes it's like a marriage of misfits per se. How do you go around tackling such issues like resistance? Because sometimes they will actually come to the front burner. And what are other challenges that you perceive could happen in terms of trying to implement this DEI?
All right, so implementing DEI is about appreciating our differences. Like I said, diversity is about the presence of differences, but not just about the presence of it, it's also about the appreciation of it. And because we are humans, we are also creatures of habits. So by the time we bring in DEI conversations to the table like this, there will be some level of resistance due to tradition and habits that have already been formed, just like when you're implementing any other culture shift, right? So people need to be groomed into it. They need to be brought up, I mean, in terms of knowledge, right? And that's why I talked about training much earlier. You need to speak to them about it. They are suspicious of change because they don't understand it. They need to understand it. It is that education, right, enlightenment that overcomes certain level of resistance that is born out of maybe ignorance, suspicion, and things like that. The other side of it is that we also need to be able to, you know, measure the progress of our DEI initiatives. When we see that it is working for us, I mean, everybody chooses what works at the end of the day. So again, we have to be able to show how it is working within the context of our organization, our bottom line, our impact, our measurable outcomes.
These progresses can actually be measured.
Oh yes, they can.
Okay, but another question that's coming to my head now, we're talking about DEI, talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion specifically. Now, let's talk about people living with disability. That's been some challenge at some workplaces because some people who are living with disability, they feel they don't get as much chances as, you know, those who are supposedly abled, as it were. You know, and there are talks of the work environment, the workflow, or even the infrastructure per se is not really fair to the extent that it makes me to do my job better. How do we handle all of that?
So the point is we need to recognize the potential in each and every person, which is really what leadership is about. Leadership is about recognizing potential and harnessing that potential for progress, right? We can't say that because a person is disabled in one area, then they are entirely disabled and cannot contribute. Are you guys what I'm saying? So we've had inventors who were disabled. We still have pastors who are disabled. We have professionals who are disabled, and they have contributed immensely to the progress of humans, as it were. So what I would say is this: we need to provide those who are disabled with the right tools to help actualize their potentials and get the most in terms of their contribution. It's not so much about whether they can contribute or not. It's a question of whether we are ready to tap into that potential or to give them the opportunities that they need to fulfill their potential or not.
Okay, so this is really very interesting because at the end of the day, like you said, everyone has something they can add to the bottom line, and you know, so they need to be appreciated. They need to be given what is equitable for them to be able to reach those goals. But then it's still very interesting. So what are the impacts really of all of this? Because some people would say that does it really work? How does it really affect my employees? What can we really do? Is there any essence to it? What are the impacts of all of this on the employees?
You can think about it. For instance, a woman who is employed within an organization, who, you know, takes in, delivers, and a company arranges for a daycare or a crèche or something, so that she can, you know, focus more on her work while her child is well taken care of. Do you think she would appreciate that gesture?
Of course.
Oh, definitely yes. Because the company has factored the fact that this woman would need her child to be well taken care of. So again, that is one way of implementing DEI. Of course, I know an organization that had to, as a matter of DEI, right, driving DEI practices within the organization, you know, create a crèche. Yes, they created a crèche, and it has been growing ever since for their staff. Right? So when people see that their needs are met within an organization, they see that the organization sees them, the leaders see them. They feel valued, they feel respected, they feel appreciated, they feel like they belong there. It boosts their morale. It boosts their motivation. Again, when people see that they have an equal shot on opportunities for progress, for advancement, that their own actions will determine their outcomes. Their own talents will determine their outcomes, their efforts will determine their outcomes. I mean, they put in all they've got. But by the time they think that no matter what I do, the fact that I am a woman, or the fact that I am young, or the fact that I'm from a particular tribe or a particular religion, I will not get what I want to get, regardless. They feel there's really no need to put in the effort. And so at the end of the day, organizational morale is low. But when we practice DEI, when we implement DEI and everybody feels welcome, everybody feels accepted, they feel they belong, it increases the organizational morale. Aside that, it also increases the retention rates, and of course that prevents losses in terms of turnover, right? And then of course it increases the bottom line. It also helps you to attract the right kind of talent, the top talent. Talent is universal. If they don't feel appreciated in a particular place because of other factors, they definitely move to the other places where they'll be appreciated. So at the end of the day, an organization can attract and retain top talent by practicing DEI strategies.
Okay, a final word right now as we round off. We're talking about DEI, we've talked about the workplace, we've talked about the home front. So let's talk about Nigeria generally, now leadership and all of that. How do we bring all of this home when we talk about all of the leadership crises that we've had in the country? So how do we begin to appreciate DEI so we can actually foster progress and the national growth? Very quickly.
So Nigeria is a diverse a country of diverse ethnicity, and this ought to be a strength for us. Unfortunately, over the years, it has become our curse, as it were, and that particularly because of the perspectives, and then particularly because of the political drives around it, the political interests. But the point is, if we can utilize our diversity, we will be better for it as a nation. That said, we'll need a whole lot of reorientation, a national reorientation, and we need to be able to see each other for for who we are and for what we represent, other than trying to put, one down whatsoever. No, we need to begin to embrace what each person brings to the table so that we can forge ahead as a united front.
All right, I must say a very big thank you to you, Bright Ukwenga, for joining us and sharing this wonderful insights to Nigerians and, of course, people outside Nigeria, because indeed we need to show inclusivity and we need to be able to appreciate our diversity as a people. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Justin.
All right, that's the size of the show for today. My guest has been Bright Ukwenga. He is an author and transformation coach, and we've been looking at DEI and, of course, how you can bring it to leadership, the workplace, and, of course, the country generally. Let's keep it a date, same time next time. My name is Justin Academy. Many thanks for being there.